Makeup and cosmetics through the ages. Everything we know about makeup traces back to its start, and particularly one country, Egypt. The land of valiant kings and queens who actually put in a lot of effort to look valiant as well. However, the interesting fact is that they did not do it all just for beauty, they did it for safety and comfort as well. The history of makeup and cosmetics is greatly influential there. The modern eyeliners that we wear on our eyes can be traced back to Egypt. Apparently, they were the ones who used coal on their eyes. The reason was quite interesting as well. It was religious, and the royals thought it made them look more godly. Furthermore, coal had the lead in it, and the lead actually warded off diseases for the users. However, if they had used it long enough, it would have killed them too. We all know what the weather of Egypt is like, dry and hot. As a result, people even back then used natural things to moisturize their bodies, as perfumes, and also to protect from the sun. Those things just had no name, but that was the beginning of the cosmetics. They would use things like rose water, olive oil, sesame oil, lavender, etc. Cleopatra actually wore lipstick as well, derived from ground carmine beetles. And all these trends back then spread to Greece. The people in Greece put their attention to beautification as well. Now, the Romans became quite racist in this case. They had their eyes fixated on fairness when it came to beautification. Oftentimes they would use arsenic on their faces to whiten it. Needless to mention, this caused the users great harm and even death. Apparently, this had a lot to do with social class. The rich women in the society used to stay indoors most of the time, which contributed to their pale skin. As a result, the ones who had to work outside developed a liking towards it and established pale skin with the rich and beautiful. Thus, began the history of using face powders and foundations to make skin look fairer. It was not only the Romans who established makeup and cosmetics with social class. In fact, the Egyptians did as well. That is where we saw the advent of nail paints. Apparently, Egyptians used to take good care of their nails and paint it in different colors. Lower classes were not allowed to use certain colors, while there were fixed nail colors for different levels of royalty and castes. One look at their nails and you knew who they were, the benefits of a small population. The concept of eyeshadow was existent in these countries in ancient times as well, especially when it came to dramas and play. Surprisingly, the most popular users of eyeshadow were male performers who used to disguise as women during plays. While makeup and cosmetics were welcomed with open arms in most countries, there were times and places where it was not. For example, in England, most likely during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, bright makeup was considered a bad thing and established with prostitutes and actors. Therefore, they still used things to make their skin look good, but never in a way that people would notice. On the other hand, during Elizabeth I, a different kind of style was in practice. Girls used to put egg whites on their face for a glow. Something we achieve out of highlighters today. Furthermore, big foreheads were in trend when makeup and cosmetics became commercial. Back then, until around 1200, people mostly made these products themselves or through someone they knew. There was not much widespread buying and selling of makeup or cosmetic products. But, in 1200, Italy and France together proved to the most affluent when it came to cosmetics. They made perfumes, amazing ones, and kept improving them. People would buy perfumes from them and they would export because they were so good at it. So, there began the start of the perfume industry, which was already existent but without a name. Mascara was something people were using anyway, using gel or more. However, you have heard the name Maybelline, and they were the first producers of what we see as mascara nowadays. The brand is actually named Maybelline after the founder's sister for whom he had made the mascara. How sentimental, isn't it? So, where did the pocket face powder boxes women carry come from? That is like the definition of makeup, isn't it? Apparently, these little boxes with whitening powder and a mirror were invented by Max Factor. He had created it mainly to aid the actors and actresses during the making of films. Later, when he realized that this is an excellent and helpful invention for others, he publicized the product and everyone started using it. In ancient times, people mostly used henna to dye their hair. But, then, L'Oréal, which is L'Oréal right now, came out with their hair dyes. Then, many beauty products like the sunblock, modern containers of lipsticks, etc. came to the field, but never all at once. Across the globe. North Africa. Egypt. One of the earliest cultures to use cosmetics was ancient Egypt, where both Egyptian men and women used makeup to enhance their appearance. The use of cosmetics in ancient Egypt is well documented. Kohl has its roots in North Africa. The use of black kohl eyeliner and eyeshadows in dark colors such as blue, red, and black was common, and was commonly recorded and represented in Egyptian art, as well as being seen in Egyptian hieroglyphs. Ancient Egyptians also extracted red dye from fucus algin, 0.01% iodine, and some bromine mannite, but this dye resulted in serious illness. Lipsticks with shimmering effects were initially made using a pearlescent substance found in fish scales, which are still used extensively today. Despite the hazardous nature of some Egyptian cosmetics, ancient Egyptian makeup was also thought to have antibacterial properties that helped prevent infections. Remedies to treat wrinkles contained ingredients such as gum of frankincense and fresh moringa. For scars and burns, a special ointment was made of red ochre, kohl, and sycamore juice. An alternative treatment was a poultice of carob grounds and honey, or an ointment made of knotgrass and powdered root of wormwood. To improve breath, the ancient Africans chewed herbs or frankincense, which is still in use today. Jars of what could be compared with setting lotion have been found to contain a mixture of beeswax and resin. These doubled as remedies for problems such as baldness and graying hair. They also used these products on their mummies, because they believed that it would make them irresistible in the afterlife. Middle East. Cosmetics are mentioned in the Old Testament, such as in 2 Kings chapter 9 verse 30, where the biblical figure Jezebel painted her eyelids, approximately 840 BC. Cosmetics are also mentioned in the Book of Esther, where beauty treatments are described. Asia. China. Flowers play an important decorative role in China. Legend has it that once on the 7th day of the first lunar month, while Princess Shouyang, daughter of Emperor Wu of Lusong, was resting under the eaves of Hanzhong Palace near the plum trees after wandering in the gardens, a plum blossom drifted down onto her fair face, leaving a floral imprint on her forehead that enhanced her beauty further. The court ladies were said to be so impressed, that they started decorating their own foreheads with a small delicate plum blossom design. This is also the mythical origin of the floral fashion, Maihua Zhuang, literally, plum blossom makeup, that originated in the southern dynasties, 420 to 589, and became popular amongst ladies in the Tang, 618 to 907, and Song, 960-1279, dynasties. Mongolia. Women of royal families painted red spots on the center of their cheeks, right under their eyes. However, it is a mystery why. Japan. In Japan, geisha wore lipstick made of crushed safflower petals to paint the eyebrows and edges of the eyes as well as the lips, and sticks of binsuke wax, a softer version of the sumo wrestler's hair wax, were used by geisha as a makeup base. Rice powder colors the face and back. Rouge contours the eye socket and defines the nose. Ohaguro, black paint, colors the teeth for the ceremony, called erikai, when Maiko, apprentice geisha, graduate and become independent. The geisha would also sometimes use bird droppings to compile a lighter color. Western Asia. Cosmetics were used in Persia and what today is Iran from ancient periods. Kohl is a black powder that is used widely across the Persian Empire. It is used as a powder or smeared to darken the edges of the eyelids similar to eyeliner. After Persian tribes converted to Islam and conquered those areas, in some areas cosmetics were only restricted if they were to disguise the real look in order to mislead or cause uncontrolled desire. In Islamic law, despite these requirements, there is no absolute prohibition on wearing cosmetics. The cosmetics must not be made of substances that harm one's body. An early teacher in the 10th century was Abu al-Qasim al-Zahrawi, or Abul Qasis, who wrote the 24-volume medical encyclopedia al-Tazrif. A chapter of the 19th volume was dedicated to cosmetics. As the treatise was translated into Latin, the cosmetic chapter was used in the West. Al-Zahrawi considered cosmetics a branch of medicine, which he called medicine of beauty, Adwiyat al-Zina. He deals with perfumes, scented aromatics and incense. There were perfumed sticks rolled and pressed in special molds, perhaps the earliest antecedents of present-day lipsticks and solid deodorants. He also used oily substances called adan for medication and beautification. Europe. Cultures to use cosmetics include the ancient Greeks and the Romans. In the Roman Empire, the use of cosmetics was common amongst prostitutes and rich women. Such adornment was sometimes lamented by certain Roman writers, who thought it to be against the castitas required of women by what they considered traditional Roman values, and later by Christian writers who expressed similar sentiments in a slightly different context. Pliny the Elder mentioned cosmetics in his Naturalis Historia, and Ovid wrote a book on the topic. Pale faces were a trend during the European Middle Ages. In the 16th century, women would bleed themselves to achieve pale skin. Spanish prostitutes wore pink makeup to contract pale skin. 13th century Italian women wore red lipstick to show that they were upper class. Use of cosmetics continued in Middle Ages, where the face was whitened and the cheeks rouged. During the later 16th century in the West, the personal attributes of the women who used makeup created a demand for the product among the upper class. Cosmetics continued to be used in the following centuries, though attitudes towards cosmetics varied throughout time, with the use of cosmetics being openly frowned upon at many points in Western history. In the 19th century, Queen Victoria publicly declared makeup improper, vulgar, and acceptable only for use by actors, with many famous actresses of the time, such as Sarah Bernhardt and Lily Langtry, using makeup. 19th-century fashion ideals of women appearing delicate, feminine and pale were achieved by some through the use of makeup, with some women discreetly using rouge on their cheeks and drops of belladonna to dilate their eyes to appear larger. Though cosmetics were used discreetly by many women, makeup in Western cultures during this time was generally frowned upon, particularly during the 1870s, when Western social etiquette increased in rigidity. Teachers and clergy women specifically were forbidden from the use of cosmetic products. The Americas and Australia. Some Native American tribes painted their faces for ceremonial events or battle. Similar practices were followed by Aboriginals in Australia. 19th century. During the late 1800s, the Western cosmetics industry began to grow due to a rise in visual self-awareness, a shift in the perception of color cosmetics, and improvements in the safety of products. Prior to the 19th century, limitations in lighting technology and access to reflective devices stifled people's ability to regularly perceive their appearance. This, in turn, limited the need for a cosmetic market and resulted in individuals creating and applying their own products at home. Several technological advancements in the latter half of the century, including the innovation of mirrors, commercial photography, marketing and electricity in the home and in public, increased consciousness of one's appearance and created a demand for cosmetic products that improved one's image. Face powders, rouges, lipstick and similar products made from home were found to have toxic ingredients, which deterred customers from their use. Discoveries of non-toxic cosmetic ingredients, such as Henry Tetlow's 1866 use of zinc oxide as a face powder, and the distribution of cosmetic products by established companies such as Rimmel, Guerlain, and Hudnut helped popularize cosmetics to the broader public. Skincare, along with face painting products like powders, also became in-demand products of the cosmetics industry. The mass advertisements of cold cream brands such as Pond's through billboards, magazines, and newspapers created a high demand for the product. These advertisement and cosmetic marketing styles were soon replicated in European countries, which further increased the popularity of the advertised products in Europe. 20th century. During the early 1900s, makeup was not excessively popular. In fact, women hardly wore makeup at all. Makeup at this time was still mostly the territory of prostitutes, those in cabarets and on the black and white screen. Face enameling, applying actual paint to the face, became popular among the rich at this time in an attempt to look paler. This practice was dangerous due to the main ingredient often being arsenic. Pale skin was associated with wealth because it meant that one was not out working in the sun and could afford to stay inside all day. Cosmetics were so unpopular that they could not be bought in department stores, they could only be bought at theatrical costume stores. A woman's makeup routine often only consisted of using papier poudre, a powdered paper, oil blotting sheet, to whiten the nose in the winter and shine their cheeks in the summer. Rouge was considered provocative, so was only seen on Women of the Night. Some women used burnt matchsticks to darken eyelashes, and geranium and poppy petals to stain the lips. Vaseline became high in demand because it was used on chapped lips, as a base for hair tonic, and soap. Toilet waters were introduced in the early 1900s, but only lavender water or refined cologne was admissible for women to wear. Cosmetic deodorant was invented in 1888, by an unknown inventor from Philadelphia and was trademarked under the name Mum deodorant. Roll-on deodorant was launched in 1952, and aerosol deodorant in 1965. Around 1910, makeup became fashionable in the United States of America and Europe owing to the influence of ballet and theater stars such as Mathilde Kosciuszynska and Sarah Bernhardt. Colored makeup was introduced in Paris upon the arrival of the Russian ballet in 1910, where ochres and crimsons were the most typical shades. The Daily Mirror beauty book showed that cosmetics were now acceptable for the literate classes to wear. With that said, men often saw rouge as a mark of sex and sin, and rouging was considered an admission of ugliness. In 1915, a Kansas legislature proposed to make it a misdemeanor for women under the age of 44 to wear cosmetics for the purpose of creating a false impression. The Daily Mirror was one of the first to suggest using a pencil line, eyeliner, to elongate the eye and an eyelash curler to accentuate the lashes. Eyebrow darkener was also presented in this beauty book, created from gum arabic, Indian ink, and rosewater. George Burchett developed cosmetic tattooing during this time period. He was able to tattoo on pink blushes, red lips, and dark eyebrows. He also was able to tattoo men disfigured in the First World War by inserting skin tones in damaged faces and by covering scars with colors more pleasing to the eye. Max Factor opened up a professional makeup studio for stage and screen actors in Los Angeles in 1909. Even though his store was intended for actors, ordinary women came in to purchase theatrical eyeshadow and eyebrow pencils for their home use. In the 1920s, the film industry in Hollywood had the most influential impact on cosmetics. Stars such as Theda Bara had a substantial effect on the makeup industry. Helena Rubinstein was Bara's makeup artist. She created mascara for the actress, relying on her experiments with kohl. Others who saw the opportunity for the mass market of cosmetics during this time were Max Factor Sr. and Elizabeth Arden. Many of the present-day makeup manufacturers were established during the 1920s and 1930s. Lipsticks were one of the most popular cosmetics of this time, more so than rouge and powder, because they were colorful and cheap. In 1915, Maurice Levy invented the metal container for lipstick, which gave license to its mass production. The flapper style also influenced the cosmetics of the 1920s, which embraced dark eyes, red lipstick, red nail polish, and the suntan, invented as a fashion statement by Coco Chanel. The eyebrow pencil became vastly popular in the 1920s, in part because it was technologically superior to what it had been, due to a new ingredient, hydrogenated cottonseed oil, also the key constituent of another wonder product of that era, Crisco oil. The early commercial mascaras, like Maybelline, were simply pressed cakes containing soap and pigments. A woman would dip a tiny brush into hot water, rub the bristles on the cake, remove the excess by rolling the brush onto some blotting paper or a sponge, and then apply the mascara as if her eyelashes were a watercolor canvas. Eugene Schuler, founder of L'Oréal, invented modern synthetic hair dye in 1907, and he also invented sunscreen in 1936. The first patent for a nail polish was granted in 1919. Its color was a very faint pink. It's not clear how dark this rose was, but any girl whose nails were tipped in any pink darker than a baby's blush risked gossip about being fast. Previously, only agricultural workers had sported suntans, while fashionable women kept their skins as pale as possible. In the wake of Chanel's adoption of the suntan, dozens of new fake tan products were produced to help both men and women achieve the sun-kissed look. In Asia, skin whitening continued to represent the ideal of beauty, as it does to this day. In the time period after the First World War, there was a boom in cosmetic surgery. During the 1920s and 1930s, facial configuration and social identity dominated a plastic surgeon's world. Facelifts were performed as early as 1920, but it wasn't until the 1960s when cosmetic surgery was used to reduce the signs of aging. During the 20th century, cosmetic surgery mainly revolved around women. Men only participated in the practice if they had been disfigured by the war. Silicone implants were introduced in 1962. In the 1980s, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons made efforts to increase public awareness about plastic surgery. As a result, in 1982, the United States Supreme Court granted physicians the legal right to advertise their procedures. The optimistic and simplified nature of narrative advertisements often made the surgeries seem hazard-free, even though they were anything but. The American Society for Aesthetic Plastic Surgery reported that more than 2 million Americans elected to undergo cosmetic procedures, both surgical and non-surgical, in 1998, liposuction being the most popular. Breast augmentations ranked second, while numbers 3, 4, and 5 went to eye surgery, facelifts, and chemical peels. During the 1920s, numerous African Americans participated in skin bleaching in an attempt to lighten their complexion as well as hair straightening to appear whiter. Skin bleachers and hair straighteners created fortunes worth millions and accounted for a massive 30 to 50% of all advertisements in the black press of the decade. Oftentimes, these bleachers and straighteners were created and marketed by African American women themselves. Skin bleachers contained caustic chemicals such as hydroquinone, which suppressed the production of melanin in the skin. These bleachers could cause severe dermatitis and even death in high dosages. Many times these regimens were used daily, increasing an individual's risk. In the 1970s, at least 5 companies started producing makeup for African American women. Before the 1970s, makeup shades for black women were limited. Face makeup and lipstick did not work for dark skin types because they were created for pale skin tones. These cosmetics that were created for pale skin tones only made dark skin appear gray. Eventually, makeup companies created makeup that worked for richer skin tones, such as foundations and powders that provided a natural match. Popular companies like Astarte, Afram, Libra, Florey Roberts and Fashion Fair priced the cosmetics reasonably due to the fact that they wanted to reach out to the masses. From 1939 to 1945, during the Second World War, cosmetics were in short supply. Petroleum and alcohol, basic ingredients of many cosmetics, were diverted into war supply. Ironically, at this time when they were restricted, lipstick, powder, and face cream were most desirable and most experimentation was carried out for the post-war period. Cosmetic developers realized that the war would result in a phenomenal boom afterwards, so they began preparing. Yardley, Elizabeth Arden, Helena Rubinstein, and the French manufacturing company became associated with quality after the war because they were the oldest established. Pond's had this same appeal in the lower price range. Gala Cosmetics were one of the first to give its products fantasy names, such as the lipsticks in Lantern Red and Sea Coral. During the 1960s and 1970s, many women in the Western world influenced by feminism decided to go without any cosmetics. In 1968 at the feminist Miss America protest, protesters symbolically threw a number of feminine products into a freedom trash can. This included cosmetics, which were among items the protesters called instruments of female torture, and accoutrements of what they perceived to be enforced femininity. Cosmetics in the 1970s were divided into a natural look for day and a more sexualized image for evening. Non-allergic makeup appeared when the bare face was in fashion as women became more interested in the chemical value of their makeup. Modern developments in technology, such as the high shear mixer, facilitated the production of cosmetics which were more natural-looking and had greater staying power in wear than their predecessors. The prime cosmetic of the time was eyeshadow, though women also were interested in new lipstick colors such as lilac, green, and silver. These lipsticks were often mixed with pale pinks and whites, so women could create their own individual shades. Blush-ons came into the market in this decade, with Revlon giving them wide publicity. This product was applied to the forehead, lower cheeks, and chin. Contouring and highlighting the face with white eyeshadow cream also became popular. Avon introduced the lady saleswoman. In fact, the whole cosmetic industry in general opened opportunities for women in business as entrepreneurs, inventors, manufacturers, distributors, and promoters. 21st century. Beauty products are now widely available from dedicated internet-only retailers, who have more recently been joined online by established outlets, including the major department stores and traditional bricks-and-mortar beauty retailers. Like most industries, cosmetic companies resist regulation by government agencies. In the U.S., the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, does not approve or review cosmetics, although it does regulate the colors that can be used in the hair dyes. The cosmetic companies are not required to report injuries resulting from use of their products. Although modern makeup has been used mainly by women traditionally, gradually an increasing number of males are using cosmetics usually associated to women to enhance their own facial features. Concealer is commonly used by cosmetic-conscious men. Cosmetics brands are releasing cosmetic products especially tailored for men, and men are using such products more commonly. There is some controversy over this, however, as many feel that men who wear makeup are neglecting traditional gender, and do not view men wearing cosmetics in a positive light. Others, however, view this as a sign of ongoing gender equality and feel that men also have rights to enhance their facial features with cosmetics if women could. Today the market of cosmetics has a different dynamic compared to the 20th century. Some countries are driving this economy. Japan is the second largest market in the world. Regarding the growth of this market, cosmetics in Japan have entered a period of stability. However, the market situation is quickly changing. Now consumers can access a lot of information on the internet and choose many alternatives, opening up many opportunities for newcomers entering the market, looking for chances to meet the diverse needs of consumers. The size of the cosmetics market for 2010 was 2,286 billion yen on the basis of the value of shipments by brand manufacturer. With a growth rate of 0.1%, the market was almost unchanged from the previous year. Russia. One of the most interesting emerging markets, the fifth largest in the world in 2012, the Russian perfumery and cosmetics market has shown the highest growth of 21% since 2004, reaching $13.5 billion United States dollars. Makeup and cosmetics are the most used items in the world now. It is really very important to know the history of them for clear ideas about how they emerged, evolved, developed and came to this modern era. The journey they made, the safety and beauty features they have accumulated can make us use them properly and cautiously. Knowing L'Oreal, Maybelline, Guerlain, Sephora, NARS, Bobbi Brown, IT Cosmetics etc. will make you think how important it is to the history of makeup and cosmetics. Halal makeup brands are drawing girls' attention in the USA and UK. It took makeup and cosmetics quite a while in the past to evolve. When something was in vogue, it stayed for years. During wars, due to the higher employment of women, the cosmetics industry bloomed even more. However, in the past there were times people used harmful things without even knowing it. We have dealt with that quite well now. Other than that, the industry saw drastic changes in the 20th century. From plain looks to red lips to smoky eyes to colorful ones. We have seen it all and we will see more. You cannot really keep everything documented because the trends change so fast now. However, it is a separate world of the lively, the cheerful and the artsy.